I want you to think for a moment what free will means to you. How would you define it? Got it? Now let me ask you, would someone being held hostage have free will? I would guess you would say no. Or how about when someone is drunk? Again, no. But what about when you haven't eaten all day after a 10-hour shift at work? Or maybe you just won the lottery. Would you be acting freely then? So where do you draw the line? When are we ever completely free? Well, it turns out that environmental factors beyond our control start at birth. We never chose our parents, genome, or where we were born. And these factors contribute greatly to the choices we make throughout our entire lives. For example, a study conducted by Lee Raby et al. Sheds light on some of the long-lasting effects of early childhood on one's psyche. So, for example, kids growing up in more supportive households tended to do better throughout their entire lives in metrics of success and learning. Now let's pause for a moment. What are we actually talking about when we reference ourselves? In a general sense, we include our bodies, but with respect to decision making, we are only referencing our conscious minds. And that's where our control ends. Consciousness is like an illuminated workbench. We can work with what we're provided, but the materials passed to us and the surroundings we're in are subject to change. Some are available to us because their effect is strong enough now, and others loom in the background, waiting for their moment. Take a blind man, for example. He cannot choose to start seeing things because it's his faulty eyesight that determines the stimulus provided to him. Visual information will never enter his workbench. Or perhaps a drug addict. What's different about a drug addict from a normal person is their subconscious gravitation to the drug, or rather the specific effect of the drug. Not only does a drug addict long for the effects of the drug, but there are also physical effects of withdrawal, making quitting cold turkey incredibly difficult. So far my examples have all been fairly extreme, not really applicable to the normal average person. So I have a challenge for you. Think of the last action you took that you consider to be free. Now, why did you do it? Chances are that you can provide an answer. For example, you chose breakfast burritos to eat this morning. Well, why did you choose breakfast burritos? Well, you haven't had them in a while. Well, why would you want it because you haven't had it for a while? You like burritos. Why do you like burritos? They taste good. Why do burritos taste good? Keep asking why, and you'll reach a point of no verbal response. I mean, you can't really respond to the question, why do burritos taste good? We cannot continue to verbalize our reasoning because reasoning is limited to our conscious mind. Our subconscious is not visible to us by nature. In effect, we are never free because we are incapable of total freedom. We are necessarily an ingrained component of the rest of our collective being, and the rest of you has a significant degree of control. And that right there, my friends, is your subconscious mind exerting its influence. I like to call this the just because zone. So if no one's in total control of themselves, should we start releasing criminals and devolve to a lawless society of total indifference? Firstly, no, because law and order serve to our mutual benefit. Survival, reproduction, and most importantly, good feelings are maximized. Secondly, we're all in the same boat together, and we all operate under what I like to call little free will. It's not like criminals are a special breed of human who have no control over themselves whatsoever. Because we do have control, but I like to call it little control or little free will. Little free will is the operation of our brain that results in a decision. This is what most people think of when they think of free will. But it is far from free, as you've seen. Now, the other idea of free will is big free will. Big free will is total control over everything, which is what I would consider true freedom. Another word for this is omnipotence, and this concept is actually paradoxical in itself. this kind of total control over everything is just not even coherent or possible. If you see my last video, you'll know that the only being attributed with such a quality would be God. For omnipotence to be coherent, God would have to also determine himself. Otherwise, he would not truly be in control of everything because he cannot control his own desires. And note that a desire for something is inherently a process bound by time, since it describes an end state that has not happened yet. So if God cannot desire anything, which I believe to be the logical conclusion given God's nature, God is also incapable of exercising any control over anything, because that requires a cognitive process. Clearly, self-determination is problematic, so even the will of God is not free. Think about it. If you're determining yourself, what is the thing determining yourself? What determined that? At a certain point, nothing determined it. It just is. And if it just is, then there's no control. Then you had no control over the way it is. So in conclusion, we have will, sure. But free will? Not a shot.